Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Małgorzata Miśniakiewicz and I work with Art Transparent Foundation. Before we get more into the program, we just want to express our regrets that Kateryna Botanova was unable to join us. It was a last moment unforeseen circumstance, so apologies for the change. I will try to fill in her boots as well as I can, and I'll be moderating tonight. This conversation is a part of Unlearning project that the foundation is realizing with its partners from Budapest, Košice and Rzeszów, in which we look at the relations between art and social change and try to see how it's been going and what are its possible futures. The Unlearning means for us trying to revise the modes we are already working in and seeing which way we should move forward. This is, of course, also related to Survival Art Review, which is the setting of this conversation, being 20. Welcome to the conversation. Please feel free to join whenever you want to and to keep it as open as possible. So speaking to the audience gathered here, just please raise your hand and we'll give you a mic. And let me start by introducing our guests this evening. The first one is Zuzana Kupcová, who is a senior project manager, researcher and facilitator in creative industry Košice. She studied at the Faculty of Humanities at Charles University in Prague. Since 2013, she has been working on the artist in residency program KAIR, which was created as one of the main projects for Košice European Capital of Culture 2013. Currently, she is focusing on the projects that support the creative community in Košice in terms of the development of the spaces and support programs for creative research and educational activities. She facilitates discussions between cultural organizations and vulnerable groups using the co-creation methods. Zuzana believes that cultural events and spaces should be accessible to everyone, regardless of age, social background, and health conditions. Thematically, she focuses on social responsibility, community involvement, and the protection of human rights. Our other speaker tonight is Franz Tisek, who is a cultural manager of Kulturní Centrum Rzeszów. He has also run drogery in Vienna, and for Franz, art is a living spiritual focal point, a place of social awareness, an intersection of the lines of force of time and the seismograph, a space of freedom and an instrument of human liberation. And as his work in the Viennese artist-run space Kulturdrogerie shows, it can also be a lively and unrepeatable social event, the importance of which far exceeds what it seems to be at first glance. Something difficult to describe, even mysterious, and yet something essentially concrete, something that gives art a deeper meaning. Our third speaker tonight is Balázs Simon. There is a lot of nature around, who is a theatre director. He completed his PhD at the University of Theatre and Film Arts in Budapest. He founded the Utcasak Alkotokoszak creative space in 2007, which is an association of theatre, dance and circus artists who specify in exploring new old ways to address the non-theatre goers who are not able to benefit from the positive influence of live performing arts due to economic, social and geographical reasons. They often work together with Roma communities, children in foster care or incarcerated people. And our final speaker tonight is Yuriy Biley, who was born in Uzhhorod in Ukraine. He graduated the National Academy of Arts in Lviv. Since 2015, he lives and works in Wrocław. Yuriy is a visual artist and curator, and whose practice focuses on experience of immigration. He is a co-founder and a member of the Open Group since 2012. In the 2013, Open Group was awarded the special prize of Pinchuk Art Prize in Kiev, and in 2015, the winner of the main prize. They also, in 2015, as an Open Group member, he participated in exhibition Hope, presented in Ukrainian National Pavilion at 56th Biennale of Venice. In 2019, Open Group curated the Pavilion of Ukraine at the 58th La Biennale di Venezia. Since 2019, together with Magdalena Kreis, he co-creates an independent exhibition place, New Golden, in Wrocław. And since 2020, together with Vera Zaludzkaya and Julia Kriwicz, he co-creates Za Group, foreign artists living in Poland, which a practice is based on the research dedicated to experience of migration to Poland. Before we start our conversation, I forgot to mention that this project is organized by the Visegrad Funds, who have been exceptionally welcoming to the change of the plan that we proposed, as the project was supposed to focus on social relations between art and social change. The moment of the invasion in Ukraine, it seemed pertinent that this is the main thing happening in the region, and this is the main social change that is happening in our lives. So instead of showing the artists from the Visegrad countries, we've decided to show works by 4 Ukrainian artists at Survival. It can be seen at the exhibition here. So let's start with our speakers introducing themselves and talking a little bit about their own practice. Zuzana, why don't you take a lead? Or, sorry, Franz?
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for having me here. And I'm here as a representative of the Culture Center Shrlovice, which was founded 1999 by Lenka Holikova and friends in a small village in North Bohemia. And it was like the conditions that it's an area there lived more than 700 years Germans and Czechs together, door by doors, with all the problems of neighborhood. But as we know, we ended with the Second World War, and so it was a very hard start to, like, in this small village, to create a new chapter or start a new chapter of Czech-German history. And the first project was inviting artists from Germany and from Czechia to stay there for 10 days and work together, communicate together, live together, and having at the end also an exhibition for the local community, but also like from close cities like Prague and Dresden, which are less than 1 hour away. And as a beginning project, there was not this understanding. There was always like the history. The Second World War was always the main layer, and art and the artists managed to break this, to start telling a different story, a new story, and write a new chapter for neighborhood, for the relationship between Czechs and German. It's the main project, this art symposium of the Culture Center, but over the years, more and more projects, more and more groups came also to the Culture Center, and now in a 400 inhabitants village is a vibrant multinational, international meeting point during the summer weeks. And with different formats, step by step, it was able to go deeper and deeper in history, more and more to bigger problems, like from historical background, but also then year by year getting new themes, also getting then to contemporary problems. And after 23 years, we can say there that with this art project, it was possible to write and or to bring together these people, and it's not only like the Czech-German history, but it's also like the gap between city and village. So the artists were coming from Berlin, Munich, Cologne, Dresden, or Prague, Brno, and then coming to this small village. And as we see nowadays in our political discourse, there is a big gap between countryside and urban ideas and lifestyle, and therefore we're struggling within our democracy and our like liberal societies under pressure as we wouldn't have imagined. Well, we have just a small community, but at least there we have a good impact.
Thank you. Zuzana?
Yeah, I can continue. I was just surprised that... Lower, like this, yeah? Okay. So I will speak about two projects involved in. First one is Košice Artists in Residence, with which I started to work in 2013, so it's almost 10 years I'm collaborating with. The project started as one of the key projects for European Capital of Culture, and then at the beginning of 2016 we separated from the organization which ran this huge project, and we created our own association. So residency program became independent, and we moved into our own space next to one contemporary art gallery, and I think it was a good decision because it became more like flexible and easier to manage. But then we started to reconsider how to organize the program, and since it was created within European Capital of Culture, then the main topic of the residencies was like about the city and collaboration with the local art scene and all of these kind of like basic topics. But we started to feel that it's not enough for us and that we need to change it a little bit. So we created like a topic for the residency program, which we called interconnectedness. So it was about like connection of individual to the world and their responsibility. So we work a lot with the topics of migration, climate change, about the future crisis, and all of these like important topics. And I think that in the future it will become more and more specialized. So we started to work also with the Romani community in Košice. We work with the artists from Middle East. Then, of course, we work with Ukrainian artists for a longer time because, they are just behind the border, but we also have really nice collaboration with them, and so on and so on. So, the world is changing, so we also changed our topics, and it's like more and more important. And my second practice as a researcher is that last year we started to test like co-create methodology, which is called Living Labs, and we decided to work with the topic of social inclusion within the cultural spaces and events. So we organized facilitated discussions with my microphone is. Yeah. Okay. So we organized facilitated discussions with different vulnerable groups and culture organizations. So it's the approach where you have like multidisciplinary teams. So you have people from culture organizations, from organizations working with vulnerable groups, and with representatives of these groups who are sitting and discussing together, like how the culture can be more accessible to them. The first discussions were during the autumn. It was very successful. We had really nice outcomes, but then again, like lockdowns came, so we couldn't continue, and it doesn't really make sense to do it online. So we continued this spring, and we had another workshop, and we are planning to start a platform for open culture in Košice, and to focus more on research and to build somehow like guidelines or toolkits how to work with culture organizations and so on.
Thank you. Yuriy?
Ja bym się... Będę mówić po polsku, bo w tym języku łatwiej się komunikuję i poruszam. Od lat mieszkam tutaj.
I have lived here for quite some time, and I will talk about
praktykach, na których się skupiam.
Two practices I'm focusing on.
Ja i w czym uczestniczę, to pierwsze to dwie galerie, które prowadzę. Jedna w Lwowie od 2011, jest to oddolna galeria w piwnicy w Lwowie. Jedna, powiedzmy, już 11 lat.
It has been opened for 11 years. For the last 5 years, I've been managing it, let's say, remotely, because I only choose artists, and sometimes they were just visiting the exhibition before the war started, of course. Well, in Ukraine, it's one of the ways of creating a culture that is independent from anything else. 11 years ago, something like grants for artists to conduct manage these places was like some science fiction, wasn't real, and we started without any grants, and then we had them, and we opened NGOs and conducted like in the other parts of Europe and the world, but still we are a totally bottom-up initiative.
Gdzie za tych 11 lat się stworzyło takie
these 11 years, we created a very good community of various artists that actually have roots in our gallery, and they moved. And after I moved to Poland, I started working in a new Złoty, which was previously known as Złoty Kiosk in Wrocław, Golden Kiosk. And the practice of organizing and managing this bottom-up organization or place was similar, because we don't actually use grants, but we do something else. An alternative way of researching the artistic scene, in which an artist who has exhibition propose the next name, the next artist. We had already 18 such exhibitions. And the second part of my practice is besides my individual practice, I work in two collectives. The first one for 10 years called Open Group, in which we were focusing on collective work and building the environment for collective work. And the second group is Oza group, which is quite young group. It was set up because we felt that the community that we belong to, I'm talking about foreign artists living in Poland, should speak on their own. And our first project was Project Zine, which was to research, investigate the artists living in Poland and their community. And then, when we defined ourselves as a community with a name, which has words, we started answering questions that are common to us. It's migration in Poland. This is something that is joining us together.
Thank you. Balázs, sorry, before we start, there are headsets for those of you who don't speak both Polish and English, so please just raise your hands if you need translations. Balázs, if you can continue.
Yes, thank you very much. And also very grateful that I could come to Wrocław and I could see your incredible work here. I'm just really impressed by the work of arts are here, and also by the variety of people who are visiting the exhibition. It's incredible. I can say that it wouldn't ever happen in Hungary. Yeah. I hope it will once happen in Hungary. Okay, so our work is I can relate to what Yuriy was saying. Our work is very much stems in the wish of establishing communities, and first of all, theater, a creative group as a community. And for me, as a theater director, I always was struggling in the institutional theaters. I was working in institutional theaters for almost 15 years to create the necessary resilience and the kind of safe space in institutional theaters to foster communities throughout these kind of 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of rehearsal processes, and I failed a lot. And then as an artist, you can feel when your work is no, but it's scattering. So when your work is not really efficient for inner references, so you feel that it hasn't have the effect or the impact as you dreamed of or felt that would be fulfilling. And then I started to move out from this circle of official theaters. It's also earning the living is a kind of changing of lifestyle. This was needed, and we established with Barna Petrányi, we established Utcaszak in 2007, and we tried to find out ways. So we were experimenting with theater and community, and we just in 3 years we ended up at the Romani community in northeast of Hungary, where they are really in need in many ways, not only cultural way. So obviously, if you regard it from Maslow point of view, they are art is the least thing what they need. But we thought that we didn't believe in Maslow so much that we could admit what is the general view of society, that for example, people in need, doesn't need art. So people in need, they need bread and not art. So I would contrast this assumption. And I think that our work is still contrasting it. Now, after 15 years, we've gone through several projects, like European ones and several Erasmus projects. Now, recently, we are participating in an alliance of street theaters who are all oriented towards small communities, what you were mentioning. So we are very much in the position that we are establishing cultural hubs in small settlements. This is one of our activities. This is Rioti. Priority 3. This is where we are active now. So I don't want to overwhelm you with all the stories of 15 years. So now I stop and let's go further for next questions.
Thank you. There's some unexpected competing event happening, but we'll push through. Maybe the first thing we could briefly talk about is the regional specificities. You all mentioned how the actual context of the place where you work informs your practice, and I was wondering how do we see the possibility of translating your practices or your experiences into other countries, and what kind of geopolitics or what kind of understanding of the region we could see from that? Before we discussed how different governments in the V4 countries even have very different understanding of promoting culture, building cultural identity or cultural heritage. So maybe we can talk a bit about the geopolitical context of the region. And of course, the main context being how the situation in Ukraine changed what we do.
With the main art symposia we are doing, we have a mirror project in Dresden. So there you have like this urban setting. People are coming together. There you have a different audience. There you have also different possibility of exhibiting, because in the city you don't have so many space. On the other side, Dresden is more open for contemporary art, and then you have in a small village. Well, the village people are not the only audience, but they are always also a part of the audience. So there we see a good development. The last 23 years, that with more traffic, people are more open. There's a new generation, and to get more involved in the project. And a personal experience with an art project. I'm also in a collective and have an artist-run space in Vienna since 17 years. And there we are occupying since 10 years public space for exhibitions, so it's a legal occupation, but like in city as in Vienna, city is like developed, and so if you have a demand on space, then you have to take it from someone, and in this case we take it from car owners. So we have two parking places, and luckily the last years it became more easy. So for the first time it was quite a big deal 8 years ago, and now we are already get it for the whole year. And this practice we exported just in 2 weeks ago to Litomyšl, a small town in Czechia, and there is like everything beginning from like 10 years ago, so it was like a little bit time machine for us. And to get on a marketplace with 500 car parks, to get two places for 2 months to show a sculpture. But well, we were the first Voreigner in exhibiting there. They have like art in public space just for the third time. Yeah, but so we are making their pioneer works, and learning from other countries, Visegrad countries. We like collaborating with Art Transparent already, or we know them already 10 years, and they inspired us quite a lot for our own work in the culture center, and like with an exhibition we do now in August, also with Czech and Ukrainian artists. And what we also learned with, because like always this audience theme that we last year we overtook a non-commercial gallery in a city with 25,000 inhabitants, and there we have possibility to show our work in different contexts, and to involve with artists from Czechia and Germany, but also now it's getting then more international.
Maybe from my point of view, when you ask about this geopolitical situation, it's what I see as the biggest threat to our society is that our political situation is becoming more and more conservative. I think it's the same here in Poland, and it's also a Hungarian case. So that's why I see such a huge importance of creating safe spaces for different communities. And I think that the culture world has potential to create these types of safe spaces and to show good practices, how they can operate. And what changed with the Russian invasion was that for residency program we changed our program. So we already had 2 artists at residency when it all happened. One of them is exhibited here, Maxim Kodak, on the top floor of this building. So there was immediate change. We had 2 young guys at the residency, and we needed to deal with the situation. So our residency apartment became like emergency accommodation for some time. So their friends were just moving through Košice to other countries, and we decided to change other parts of the program. So we have partners in Budapest, so we decided that we will not do exchange during the spring, but both organizations will host Ukrainian artists. So now we have 2 Ukrainian girls at the residency. But the main question is okay, we can change the program again, but for how long? Because of course it's not sustainable for us to change the whole program only for Ukrainian artists. It would not be the purpose of the residency program we are doing, and we also are doing somehow compromises into the topics we want to work with. So this is a huge question, what culture organizations should do. We want to help a lot, but then still we have our programs and plans and so on. So how can this be combined? So this is the biggest question for us now.
Odpowiadając na twoje pytania, no to z mojej perspektywy ja patrzę na te pytania z 2 stron, to patrząc na swoje doświadczenia życia w Polsce i na to doświadczenie, które otrzymałem w Ukrainie za tych 27 lat, które mieszkałem w Ukrainie i skończyłem szkołę, pracowałem w galerii jednej, drugiej, byłem bardzo zaangażowany w środowisko i później ten wybór emigracji do Polski, przez to, że się po prostu zakochałem i przyjechałem do tego miasta. Inaczej bym się nie zdecydował na coś takiego, żeby zostawić Ukrainę, bo to środowisko, artystyczne środowisko w Ukrainie jest bardzo, bardzo ciekawe i wciąż mam jakieś takie sentymentalne wspomnienia o tym, jak było wtedy i jak było tam fajnie. I ono wciąż takie jest. Ono się cały czas rozwija i to jakby nasze pokolenie wyrosło na 2 rewolucjach, na aneksji Krymu i na teraz wojnie, nie? Na takiej wojnie, która bardzo dużo coś zmieniło i w moim postrzeganiu
in my
kultury w Ukrainie
perception of Ukrainian culture and what's happening in Europe in general. Z punktu widzenia
doświadczenia emigranckiego i tematów, z którymi pracuję, to ja osobiście stałem się świadkiem
I personally became a witness
jak ja jako emigrant w Polsce
me as an immigrant here in Poland
mój status socjalny.
How my social status changed.
I takie osoby jak ja,
because people like me in the past were
czymś ostatnim w całej takiej piramidzie
the last element, the lowest level of the pyramid in terms of functioning of Polish society. And after the 24th of February, there were 2 more Ukrainians in Poland, and then migrants became, or went at least one level higher.
Oni są najbardziej zagrożeni w tym kraju,
they were not the most endangered anymore, because the refugees took their place. Migrant can have an experience of living here. So we, as migrants, we started helping the refugees, and I think the migrants helped the most, especially the first days, to the refugees from Ukraine. We knew the language, we knew how to speak to these people. We understood their whole context. Why are they here? What do they need? How to work with them. It's changed a lot in Zagrupa that I work in. We postponed all our program, all our plans for some time because the questions of refugees became more important than the questions of migrants. And the difference is in terms of choice. It's based on choice. Refugees didn't have a choice. I did.
No i jeszcze wracając do tego, co się dzieje teraz w Ukrainie,
to what's happening in Ukraine right now with culture.
No to większość instytucji wciąż
majority of institutions are still closed. Some start returning to their programs, but still they are built on creating safe spaces. So these are not, maybe coming back to your question for a moment, these institutions cannot come back to their programs at all. They changed everything. Most of them tries to find means, funds to help others. I know it's a completely different perspective.
Wszystko jest ceną.
And
I my wszyscy jesteśmy ceną.
Everything is a price. We are a price as well.
Bardzo dużo myślę, to jest praca Nikity Kadana.
I think a lot about the work of Nikita Kadan, who is literally entitled "We Are the Price."
Yes, thank you. That's very interesting to listening to you. For us in Hungary, it's I could start complaining about the basically the research art as a research or artist as a researcher is not really appreciated in the current governmental, cultural, political policy makers in Hungary. So what has to be defined, I think, is the concept of art and artist and the role of artist in society. I think which would be fundamental, because artist is an active person who is concerned what she is witnessing, and that's the response is mixed with the inspiration of an art form and the human help. So it's really it goes together. Artist is a responsible person for social change. And his art is always, or my art is always, stems in this kind of wish to help. So when this Ukrainian crisis came, of course we tried to see where we can stand and where we can help and what theater can make. Also, on one hand, on raising attention on the crisis, and on the other hand, how can theater directly help people? And since we had a lot of experience that theater games or theater improvisation, theater sessions or training sessions are really important for expressing first-person experiences and to live through or to enact, as psychology says, enact experiences which cannot be told. So and theater is really very apt for this work. But the government, since the government overtake the position of help, so the government distribute help, and as everything in Hungary, not since we are really much in the same boat, I think, but we are advanced in Hungary. So in Hungary, they really succeeded to build. It is absolutely pyramid-shaped system of governmental control. So we cannot go near to the refugees anymore. So it's absolutely overtaken by the Malta Cross, by the other non-secular aid organizations, and it's done. So it's for example, just as I mentioned when we were preparing, that with the refugees, a lot of Romani kids came. Because the Romani families, on one hand, they are also inflicted by the conflict. On the other hand, they try to profit a little bit of the benefits of being a refugee in different countries. But they are bringing the kids with them, and the kids are just in clusters, in heaps, in folks. They are around, and nobody cares them. And of course, the Hungarian government says, "Okay, we provide education," but now we have to admit that in Hungary they cannot do anything for the education of Romani, of the schools when the Romani kids are in majority or in totally today when there's 100% of the pupils in the school are of Romani origin, the teachers are blocked, so they cannot do anything, and this is general. And so they can say that we give education, but they don't have the tools. Artists have the tools.
Just a small remark that, as you said, that the government took over all help on the Hungarian side. In Slovakia, the role of NGOs is huge in the help. So as it was from the beginning, but it's a completely different situation of a third sector in Hungary. It's not supported at all. Luckily in Slovakia it is supported a lot, but then it kind of like it's taking some roles which state should take. So there are like two sides of this coin, that one extreme is that you cannot access like refugees because government don't let you. Another extreme in Slovakia in many cases is that NGOs are working so hard because state doesn't do everything what they should do. So I think there should be somehow balance somewhere in between of both situations.
Ja bym powiedział, że na przykład w Ukrainie się
I would say that in Ukraine,
tego wszystkiego, co się odbyło, z perspektywy tych 100 dni, 120 dni
days, actually 120
wojny,
days of war,
powiem, że jeżeli chodzi o instytucje oficjalne i NGOs, to my się
cofnęliśmy
tak naprawdę gdzieś do punktu zero i ten punkt zero to jest jakieś takich 8-9 lat do tyłu, gdzie
I would say it's like 8-9 years
ja też
back.
Nie mogę nikogo
obwinić
w tym, czyli rząd, bo rząd się zajmuje tymi sprawami, które są dzisiaj najbardziej ważne, czyli broń i pomóc ludziom i jakieś pytania podstawowe, pytania wolności, pytania życia, pytania dachu nad głową, a te oddolne inicjatywy, aktywiści i NGOsy przyjęli na siebie po prostu pomóc to w sektorze kulturalnym też, nie?
Deal now with culture, how to help culture.
Dlaczego mówię 8 lat, albo nawet więcej niż tych 8 lat,
years, or even more than 8 years in time. Why?
Do 2014 roku, tak.
Let's say we moved back to
wtedy
2014. When
pracując
actually, when I was
państwowymi, z Ministerstwem
working
Kultury
with
na
the Ministry of
przykład,
Culture,
tego co,
with
jak
governmental
się rozwinęły
institutions,
oficjalne instytucje do wojny,
it was
było niesamowite,
amazing how
naprawdę. Te ostatnie
institutional
5-8 lat
organizations developed before the
bardzo
war.
duży krok do przodu we
big
wszystkich i
step
współpracy,
ahead
bo pokolenia,
in
które
terms of
wyrosło na
corporations, but also the
samoorganizacji,
generation that was
przyszło
brought
do
up in
tego, że oni
NGOs,
pracują teraz, to są ludzi mojego wieku,
now
oni wszyscy
are my
do wojny
age
pracowali
and they
w
are
oficjalnych
working, and
instytucjach.
up
To jest
until
zupełnie
war
inna
they were
tego wymiana
working
kadrów. I te instytucje zaczęli inaczej pracować. Teraz mamy wracanie do podstaw, ale to doświadczenie, które mamy teraz dzięki wam wszystkim i dzięki nam wszystkim, które są w Unii Europejskiej i całym świecie, który pomaga, to co jestem bardzo wdzięczny. Te wszystkie osoby, artyści, artystki, kuratorzy, kuratorki, menedżerki, menedżerowie kultury, które są na tych rezydencjach, których wy robicie i które widzą to wsparcie i nabierają się tego doświadczenia, które biorą od was na tych tymczasowych, mam nadzieję, rezydencjach i programach, wrócą do domu, bo już wracają. I to rozwinie się, mam nadzieję, że to rozwinie się po prostu z podwójną siłą do przodu. I te wszystkie praktyki będą realizowane jeszcze bardziej.
Even better than before.
Yeah, I think that that leads to another big question that I think we've been also asking ourselves over again. Is like, how do we as cultural practitioners deal with the situation? Like, what is the best course of action and the mode of action? Like, not only what should we do, but also how should we do it? And also what kind of meaning and knowledge we are producing, and what kind of relationship are we developing or building, and what kind of maybe assumptions we're also relying on when we do these kinds of like what you said, Zuzana, it's not sustainable to only host Ukrainian artists in Košice, but then, how do we manage it? How do we deal with that? And also, how do we make our engagement sustainable?
One thing for us is that we are building on existing relationships. So we have collaboration with Nazar Vojtovich Art Residence, which is nearby Ternopil city, and they also are hosting now Ukrainian artists there because it's in a safe area. So this is not something that we would just start because of a war, or we really needed to change so much. I think one thing what we can do is to give artists not only temporary places at the residencies, but to try to help them to become part of our art scene and to help them to settle somewhere where they will feel that they can fit. It's not so easy, and but I know that many artists, they, for example, who were at the residency in Košice, they came just for a couple of days and they moved more to, for example, to Berlin, where they had somehow their community with which they can interact and they can really do their practice. So, but these residencies can help them somehow to take a deep breath and get some financial support to restart or rethink their artistic practice. So if you have safe space for 2 months, which is even with the paid stipendium and with the paid all the materials and whole production, you can really just stop for a while and think and plan your future. Because also for these artists, okay, they come for 2 months, and if they are from, I don't know, Kharkiv, where they will go after, so, but they have this chance to create the new relations or find another residency program or stipendium or something like that. So for now it works, but I'm not sure how it will work in the future, but I don't see such a huge amount of people moving right now. I don't know, maybe you know more about this. But for us also, like, we got plenty of applications when we opened the call, but many of artists, they found their places for now, because I think that like majority of residency programs in Europe opened up for Ukrainian artists. But we will see, because if conflict would proceed, there will be more and more people in need who will need to move from their places, and there is a huge amount of Ukrainian inhabitants who are like on the western Ukraine waiting what will happen. So they migrated, but within the Ukraine. But if the conflict would proceed, what we really hope not, then it can start again, like this huge movement. So it's really hard to predict like what we can do, but for us it's that we planned like the summer residencies also for Ukrainian artists, and then autumn is open. So that's basically, we have open call for like media arts and so on. So but let's see. But I think that this residence is really good for just stop, settle down, and make a strategy. What will be your next step?
The culture center Shrelovice is like it's working in the summer times, and it has the conditions like for sleeping, accommodation, modestly, and like in February they connected NGOs. They also asked us, oh, could you take refugees, and you have the space, and it's a huge area and a lot of sleeping space, but it's not for the winter time. And so for us it was also another sign that we have to push forward our culture center. It's also a grassroots project. So beside financial support for cultural work, all the years the culture center never became money for reconstruction. We know all how it's partly working with this reconstruction grants and kickback paying. But now there's a new generation of politicians. Now we are getting into a process that we are also trying to get money for reconstruction in a fair process, that we are like prepared for the future, because we felt really pity. We have this space, and but it's not possible, like freezing. And this summer we also like starting with this residents, Ukrainian artist, and we try like with this reconstruction that we can nearly all year long offer, and then also to be like this island, this safe space. And as a private initiative by Lenka and her family, and now 3 years ago the organization with a crowdfunding bought part of that, so that like this independency we have now, like next step is to getting this reconstruction. And because governments will always change, and you're like under pressure, that like this independency is very important to react fast and independent on upcoming crisis.
Just one thing that is for me now appears, that this kind of entanglement between the role of artists and the community an artist works for, and the purpose of art or work is absolutely here now. And it's probably too it's good to untangle that, and that for a Ukrainian artist who is unrooted from his community and is planted in a Western European or Eastern European country to create, it needs a kind of imaginary or real audience. and also the refugees, the Ukrainian refugees who are rooted from their community and are planted in this kind of very unknown world of different countries. They need a cultural support from their artists and from other artists, and this support can come in forms of work of art and can come in the form of participatory art. Here we Wrocław, we are in the mezzone of art, participatory art, because the word was used first by Grotowski, participatory. So this participatory artwork means when the art can act as a therapeutic a therapeutic tool for people who undergone some kind of difficulties. And it has to be provided by artists, so it cannot be provided by anyone. So these two big fields and the intersection of these fields is better to watch them as they are moving and intersecting, and what is a market of art, because you have to live, and where is the government who has to provide the financial means for this kind of actions.
Zgadzam się z tobą, że ta publiczność się bardzo zmieniła i
the audience has changed in terms of refugees that are in our countries.
To oni są tymi odbiorcami tej kultury,
are recipients of the cultures we are showing in our institutions that are official or bottom up, no matter. And if up to February 24th I was quite skeptical in terms of methods that were implemented or had been implemented in Poland in different institutions.
Były robione badania na przykład
There were, for example, studies in Wrocław up to war, like 70,000 people from Ukraine were here, and many institutions were trying to attract, for example, publicity to an audience. For example, they were translating different texts. I think that translation was really bad up to February 24th, and guides in Ukrainian, well, it wasn't very good. But after February 24th, many actually translators, professional translators, came to Poland, and it changed. And now I'm saying yes, it has to be translated, because before, immigrants that were living in Poland before war, well, the majority of them speak Poland, of course with an accent, but still they speak Polish because they live here, they study here. A bit different in terms of with refugees, because they came here suddenly without the knowledge of any language, and for them, professional translation is very, very important.
Powiem tylko na przykład doświadczeniu dzisiejszym.
I can tell you about today's experience. When I was entering survival exhibition and when I saw 4 artists from Ukraine,
też wam gratuluję, bo to są bardzo
and I congratulate you, great artists from Ukraine.
I jest to coś przyjemnego. Widzieć kogoś, kto mówi o tych problemach, które dla ciebie są ważne, które teraz cię najbardziej interesują. Mówią o tym, czym żyjesz. I jeżeli dla mnie, z mojej perspektywy to jest ważne, to wydaje mi się, że dla wielu osób, które tutaj były z Ukrainy, jest ich dużo, bo słyszę, chodzę i słyszę język. Rodziny z dziećmi. I oni się zatrzymują na tych pracach.
And actually they stop
oni widzą, że to jest coś, ten obrazek, ten kontekst, te wszystkie prace były oczywiście tutaj pokazane, powiązane z historią, bo prace przed wojną, i to też jest dobry temat, o czym się mówiło, już jest 120 dzień. Nie każdy artysta, i też jak mówiliśmy o tych rezydencjach na początku, co się zmieniło. Zmieniło się to, że na początku potrzebowali tego oddechu, żeby odpocząć. Nie każdy mógł tworzyć, nie? Bo tworzyć w takich warunkach, które były w pierwszym miesiącu, czy pierwsze 10 dni, czy pierwsze 2 miesiące, jest mega ciężko. Skupić się na sztuce albo skupić się na myśleniu, co będzie dalej, jeżeli ty nie wiesz, co będzie jutro, albo nie wiesz, co jest z twoim bratem, siostrą, mamą i tatą, to jest trudniej, trudniejsze. I z perspektywy praktyk, na początku były reakcje artystyczne. Każdy gest był reakcją, byliśmy świadkami tego, co się działo i to wszyscy ludzie, którzy przyjechali tu i zaczęli od nowa tworzyć te prace, to mi się wydaje, że nawet jeśli nie jesteśmy na procesie refleksji, bo nie można dać refleksji, nie każdy sobie pozwoli i ma umiejętność reflektować na coś w procesie, czego jeszcze jesteś. Czy ty jesteś tu? To jest jeden sposób postrzegania tego, co się dzieje tam, a jak jesteś tam, tego doświadczenia nie ma, bo nie jestem tam. Ale próbuję sobie to wyobrazić, na pewno nie dam rady.
What's going on there, and I can't do it.
Chciałam jeszcze, Jura, tak naprawdę głównie się do ciebie zwrócić, ale też...
I just wanted to say to you, that's why I'm switching to Polish for a moment.
Bo też rozmawialiśmy dużo
We spoke a lot about whether
bo oczywiście wszyscy chcą zaoferować wsparcie i naszą pracą i naszą przestrzenią jest to, co robimy w kulturze. Natomiast ja mam z tyłu głowy takie pytanie o to, kto ma prawo, wiesz, o czym mówić i czy to nie jest, jak zrobić to tak, żeby to nie było takie churalne, okej, tu mamy ukraińskich artystów, bo jest kryzys i co dalej. Jak budować takie relacje, czy powiązanie, które jest bardziej trwałe. I też to, co mówiłeś o
a lasting impression, not just because it's the right thing to do.
Taki, żeby pokazywać,
your idea to ask to create something completely new is completely pointless to me. Asking somebody from Ukraine right now with the events abroad. But the question is when would be the right moment
żeby zacząć też dyskutować
to start discussing it, to start reflecting it in art, the invasion in art. Well, it depends. It depends on the artist, it depends on the practice. There are different people. Some
które codziennie malują, nie?
Paint every day.
Na przykład Vlada
Ralko. For example, or others. There are artists, Nikita Kadan as well. There are artists who manage to create art despite the circumstances.
Może to będzie złe brzmiało, ale to jakby ten konflikt ich napędza.
The conflict propels them, however wrong that might sound. Other artists need a lot of time to be able to express their feelings, their emotions.
Ale jest wielu prac, które, na przykład ja pamiętam,
there is a lot of work. I remember back in 2014 when the Crimea was annexed by Russia. Then the war in Donbass region started. So in Open Group, our first work was created in the exhibition you organized. You co-curated it in Venice. This was the first work of our group strongly related to work. Actually, there were two works there. So almost a year after the events, it took us a year to somehow refer to what had happened.
Robienia teraz wszystkich większość wystaw, które się robią,
majority of exhibitions now
za tych 120 dni kilka nowych prac, a
just a couple of new works after 120 days. Most of works are from 2015, 14, 19, which is okay because of course the war has lasted for some time, and it did not start on the 24th of February. It has lasted for the last 8-9 years, since at least 2014. It has been going on for 10 years, in my opinion, not 8 even. First demonstration when Ukrainians decided that they want to move towards European Union and they want to integrate more. I think this was the beginning of the problems with Russia that Ukraine has had since now. So this is the choice that we made back then, is the price that we pay now.
So when it all happened, we just had the meeting with artists next morning, So I woke up, opened Instagram, and I felt like, what the hell is going on? And we had the meeting in the morning with guys from Ukraine. And it was really strange because nobody knew what to say, what can you say in this kind of situation? And we had the meeting that, let's discuss your work here at residency. What are you going to create? It was after 2 weeks at the residency, so right time went to start to think about okay, what you will create, what kind of exhibition and so on. So we just stopped and talked, about the situation, how the families are, and so on and so on. And then, as you said, each artist has different strategies. So we had 2 artists, and each of them took different strategy. Maxim, he created artwork which reflected the situation we've been in, and he reacted to the help of art, financial help, all of these money collections to support Ukrainian refugees. So he created money boxes which should be filled with the actual money, and there was a question if it's still art or if it's a practical object. And these money boxes were in the shapes of pedestals to the tank monuments, which we all have in our countries. We have in Slovakia quite a lot of them. You also have in Ukraine. So it was the symbol of a tank, but without tank, and filled it should be filled with the money. But then Mark, he decided to continue on his idea and create the work which was more intimate. He was collecting objects from the street and making the sculptures out of them, and both approaches are completely fine. They were there, and we made one interview with them, and it's they should not feel pushed only to reflect the war. They need to keep up, even if they have of course they have a strong feelings towards that, but not each artist is reflecting situation in society. Artists have different strategies of work, so it's not necessary that now every Ukrainian artist will work on this topic.
Of course, I agree completely, and many artists just postponed their art, their career, let's say, and they started doing activist work.
Później wydaje mi się, że to doświadczenia,
work that then found its reflection in their work, in their art, because things they do, we do every day. We just come here, meet with you, speak with you. This is the experience that may reflect in my artistic practice tomorrow or in a week or in a month.
Zależności, wydaje mi się, że jakby ja byłem teraz tam na miejscu,
if I were there, I would, in Ukraine, I would definitely leave my practice, postpone everything I did, and stop doing my plans that I was occupied with. Of course, if we can even still speak about these usual concepts we use, like residency, art, exhibitions, and so on, because I'm not sure if you can still talk about it. So these artists do things that are important in the first steps. I follow a lot of these artists. They fix doors, windows of their neighbors, help rebuilding their house, and they take photos, artistic photos. Even though they don't have to be part of their practice. Well, probably these photos will be used later on, because I think they are amazing photos. They are witnesses of all these events that's happening.
I still have some questions, but just to remind you, if you want to join the conversation, please let us know. So maybe a thing I would also like to ask you is, you talked about it briefly for a bit, but also what's changed? What's changed in your perception of the situation, and what changed in your perception of your own practice, and how your practice changed also in the context of all of these these transformations and changes, but also how do you see the future of the field? How do you see it will impact in a long term what you do and how you do it?
Jak te obecne wydarzenia będą miały wpływ na to, co robicie w przyszłości i to, jak to robicie?
Anyone?
Chciałby?
Yeah, maybe it's also partly too early to tell, and like acting in short-term possibilities we have, and yeah, for the long-term strategy is like more like to be aware that yeah, things can change, can hard change, but how to prepare for it? Maybe like as I said before, we want like to push forward our culture center to make it like more sustainability, longer time providing this island, I say, or safe space.
It's really hard to predict how the situation will continue. For me, like, I really want to focus in the future on like open culture or inclusive culture. I don't want to use this word too much, but really like creating safe spaces for different types of communities, especially how like the political situation is getting more extreme and conservative in Slovakia. So this is like the biggest challenge for me now, how to like sustainably establish these types of activities, because it's not so easy in this world of projects we are living in. So that we are jumping from project to project just to sustain and to finance our activities. So let's see how it goes. But there is like really nice involvement of culture organizations and also organizations which are working with vulnerable groups in Košice. So we hope it will be successful. And I think that it was for all of us. It was like a huge shock for us in Košice. It was like, you know, we are less than 100 kilometers from the border. So I also like first couple of weeks like I didn't feel safe at all, even in my home city. So maybe now it's time to reflect and to create strategies, but it's really hard to say like what they will be.
Yeah, I think. No, it's just I wanted to maybe phrase this question differently. I think for me, what I was aiming at is rethinking of thinking through the relationship between art and social change. So what is the role of art in that? We talked about creating safe spaces, so we talked about infrastructure, how art can provide infrastructure. But there's also a question of I don't want to say cultural identity, because that's not that, but also whom are we platforming, for what purpose, what kind of message are we creating, and for, you know, it is, we can talk about solidarity gestures, and of course they are important and they are there, but what follows, like what sort of long-term concept of art do we foresee, also in terms of political changes in each of the countries? I'm not talking only in the context of the war, but also in each of the countries and in the region.
Yes, I think that is everything ends up and starts with the financing edge. So what you brought up with this project based operation is, I think it has to be ended. that it has to be admitted that artist is the most valuable person of society, as we consider ourselves, aren't we? So we are more important than bankers, and then we are more important than so what I would propose is to really trust in artists in a way that if artists would be paid in an approximately decent way and in a decent extent, that the artist would provide his 24 hours work for the community. And if it's repairing a window, is that, and after developing something out of repairing windows or working with kids, or so this kind of this ability to contribute to the real process of life, because I think this is the main point. Artist is connected to the life itself. How it goes proceeds by moment, and this has to be appreciated. And the platform of artists is like that. That is no project needed to present it, and I don't need to prove or to just so these projects are, maybe you know how projects are working, that projects are really demanding for a kind of approval of the work done. So it's not enough the work of art you produced, not enough that you repair the window, you need to prove that you have repaired it. From financial point of view and from practical point of view, this is really rubbing time and energy. From the real work of artists, what should be is to be there and to act. But I think this is, maybe I could go on with this, but
Sorry, I just wanted to complete, yes, that we are fulfilling aims, objectives and activities into somehow like application forms, and like then we need to do them. But if we are working with communities, and like nowadays with the world when we don't know what will be next month, like how we can plan like big European projects for next 4 years with all of these like expectations from founders that we will know what we will do in 1 or 2 years, and we like there are like these topics of like that we need to work with climate change and with communities and with social integration, but then still we need to put it into the project application form, and this basically just doesn't really work. We are doing like procurement procedures to artworks. It's like sometimes, it's really crazy system for me, and especially if we are not because we are not doing like commission work at the beginning. We don't know what will be the result. We know where we want to start. We know who we want to work with, and maybe some of our methods, but it's hard to say like if we work with Roma community and I don't know if we will do 10 or 20 or 30 workshops, and if we will like influence 5 people or 50 people. So yeah, but what we will write to the application in 4 years, sometimes we need to report it, which is completely wrong.
Z mojej perspektywy, żeby
From my perspective, actually to answer your question, Gosia,
o tym, o tej przyszłości,
about the future you asked.
No to czas tak się dla mnie jakby położył mnie w taką
time for me put me in a position now that I think that only if we think about what we did yesterday, we can think about tomorrow. No other way, because a history that took place yesterday must be for us a point to create a future and to create tomorrow in the context of everything we did in the culture yesterday and in the context of the history and the politics. So everything needs to be taken into account. So this is most obvious direction for me to create something in the future and not to regret anything.
Are there any further questions or comments from you? So I think we're nearing the end of this conversation. I'd like to thank you all. Yeah? Yes, of course.
I was wondering about this thing you said about conservatism. Shall I go there? Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thanks. Yeah. Can I just over here? Yeah. Did you think of like how to tackle this topic of conservatism, which is it's growing everywhere. It's a huge problem. It's caused polarization, and it might happen that actually there's going to be art happening on the other side. So on the conservatism side, and then there's going to be the other side, which is going to complicate the situation even more. It's going to be dividing people more. So how do you tackle this? Or how do you think of being involved in actually going the other way?
Well, I don't know actually.
It's not towards you, but you just mentioned that. So
I mentioned that, but this is a really good question because we are working on the basis of open calls for the residency program, and one thing is artistic freedom, and of course also other sides should have freedom to express their ideas. The second side is beliefs of our organization, which are completely which are very liberal and open. So it didn't really happen to us so far that we would have to make this decision that to exclude someone for that it would not fit into our political view. I'm sure we are independent organization, so we can choose the artists we want to. But maybe this is more question for public institutions, which should somehow maybe to make overviews of the more artistic scenes and so on. If they would exclude someone because of the topic they work with, I don't know. Yeah, but of course, if it would be too extreme, then for sure.
Yes, I think it's our work to do. I think that people who are supporting war, they were with us. If you go to a shopping mall and there are newspapers in a wall, there are newspapers for the army culture, and for weapons, for hunting, for motorcycles, for many things that you would not tackle. And I think that for me as an artist, I think it's my work to do that. I need to integrate their point of view of life. So they support war. They think that it's okay to fight wars. And if I close, then maybe it augments, it pumps up the segregation of those people who don't really understand art. They don't really see the role of art in life. And I think that with all our power and self-control, we must stay open. I think this is the only way to live together with conservatism. Because every emotionally trigger the bad move is just and deepens the ditch between us. That's what I feel.
Yeah, our strategy in the culture center is a little bit not to trigger people. So we are a feminist and social, even a little bit socialist community, and we live it and we don't name it, and so it's in a conservative society, then they can take it. And another strategy is the Vienna-based artist front space. Since 4 years, we go. So we have this exhibition practice in the urban situation. There we are fighting for the public space, that it getting into the non-commercial, that we provide space for artists, and especially the last 2 years it was brilliant to have an outdoor gallery in the city center where a lot of public is. And since 4 years we have a dependance in the countryside, and it's a fish pond, so like fisherman is going there, so like it's a quite conservative community, but like with families they have a nice day. And on this area we are putting artworks from the urban situation, like created in the town. So there's different topics, and we like within this 4 years, it getting like the fishermen, they love it already, and they are already curious about what is coming up. And there was like a compliment that 50-year-old man, yeah, I'm not with. Even he said, I'm not with culture, you know, whatever it means. But I want that my children is not growing up like this, and I bring my daughter next time, because she should grow up with culture. So this was a very nice experience, feedback, and maybe we just need a long breath, long run to get. That it's an important part what we artists are doing.
I will try to ask my question in English, but it's been a while since I speak English, so let's keep our finger crossed. You talk about social change through the acting, like in the theater. You mentioned Grotowski, and like I feel like Grotowski theater happened here and happened then because it was an answer for that Holocaust and migration trauma of Second World War, and he did help people to deal with that trauma by making them focus on here and now. So, you know, like celebrate the now, to not think of the past and not to be scared of the future. But I am a member of a political party. I am a socialist, and my political acting, like being around people with the same ideology that I share, really helps me to deal with this patriarchal class stress that I feel. And I'm also like doing some ceramic and some creative, like artistic thing, and the more that it also helps me to deal with that stress. But when it does that, I lose my motivation for my political actions. So my question is basically, is art like a drug, like a ketamine, that you just like help people to deal with their emotions instead of actually pushes their anger, like acting on these triggers to make them change their environment to be more sustainable for them?
Yes, I think that it's maybe that you lose your motivation to fight is a brilliant result, and you can fight with this. So to act with to be in the, so I think that's the main problem of politics, just to make it broader, is the attitude of fight. And that's what we need. We need to get rid of very quickly, because this brings the humanity to a kind of very bad ending. This kind of fighting attitude, this kind of polarization, has to be forgotten. And if the politics could have this kind of radical changement from fight to cooperation, that would be marvelous. And this is somehow to involve Yes, or Prime Minister Orban Viktor after his historical defeat of all European left-wing politicians and liberals. He said that I need to integrate all of you. So this can be maybe this thought. They have to arrive to this thought after all, that they cannot defeat all the rest of the society. So now they defeated, and on how we would live together in the next 15 years like that. So they have the doubt, and this doubt has to be grabbed and to talk through that. Not the opposition, but somehow this kind of very smooth but very firm, resilient and calm way of cooperation. We need to cooperate. So there are the boundaries or the limitations, and there is the openness for something else, for something new.
I would just complete you about this polarization, that we need to remember that a majority of people are not on the super right or super left. Majority of people is somewhere in between. And if we put into public discourse only these polarized views, then we put people into the end of the scale, either one way or another. So I completely agree with you, and that art should be somehow this tool for cooperation and for discussion.
Ale tak w sumie jest przede wszystkim sztuka.
Yes, but it is like that.
Zadaniem sztuki nie jest dać odpowiedź.
Art's task is not to provide an answer. Art should pose questions.
Jak to pytanie
and then
postawione,
the way the question is phrased
pojawiają się te odpowiedzi, na przykład u ciebie,
forms an answer, forms a solution. You will have one answer, I will have a different one, because we're different, looking at the same work of art, the same exhibit.
I przy tym wszystkim ten artysta zadaje to samo pytanie.
Asks the same questions.
I może nas połączyć,
the answer is different because the recipients are different. It can combine us, connect us, but it can widen the gap between us as well. And of course, contemporary art provides a lot of space for us to move in, and sometimes we become greatest creators than the artist itself. We give art more meaning as recipients, more meaning than the artist intended originally, which is fantastic. So sometimes that may divide us in the past, may connect us in the future or tomorrow, and we might not even realize that,
I think this is a great moment to end this conversation. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to everyone who spoke, and thank you for your time and attention. Bye bye.